Hi everyone, so for this video we're going to be talking about the first part of the assignments that you'll need to be working on for September 8th through September 10th. So in Blackboard, over here on the left hand side where I keep have all the weeks organized, if you click on September 8th through 10th, click on that, then you will see two folders in there. Writing project number 1, poems and discussions, and Elovito 2-hour essay. When you open up this folder, you can see how this is gray here. That's because it exists, but I haven't yet made it available for you yet. I don't want you to start working on it yet, so I've grayed it out. I will let you know when it is available. And then you can go in and work on the 2-hour essay, and I'll post instructions about that. But for this video, I want to talk specifically about the first part that is available to you, which is writing project number 1, poems and discussions. So we're going to start the week of September 14th. We're going to start working on our first major writing project, which is a big essay, right? Not a real big essay, just 3 pages long. We're going to start working on that beginning on September 14th. But before you start writing about it, you have to have something to write about. So you're going to write about some poems, and you're going to choose one poem to write about. And those, I'm giving you a choice of 4 poems to write about, but you're only going to choose one. And those poems are here in this folder, writing project number 1, poems and discussions. So if I click on that, then I'm going to get the 4 poems that you could potentially talk about. They're called Persimmons, Dothead, Of the Threads That Connect the Stars, and What It's Like to Be a Black Girl. You're going to end up only writing about one of them for your major project. However, for this portion of the class, you're going to need to read all 4 of them and write on the discussion boards about all 4 of them. So you're going to read all 4 of them, write about them, and it's through reading and writing about them that you will have a better sense of which one you actually want to write about for your actual final project. So again, when it comes time to come up with your actual project that will start on the 14th, you're only going to be choosing one of these. But for now, you need to write about all 4 of them. Okay. So you can click on these and the poems will show up. And then you can see down below I have a discussion board, question and answers about persimmons, question and answers about Dothead, question and answers about Of the Threads That Connect the Stars, and question and answers about What It's Like to Be a Black Girl. So you're going to need to respond to all 4 of those discussion boards. Read all 4 poems and respond to all 4 discussion boards. These discussion boards are a little bit different than the ones that we did before. You can't read the whole thing because it comes off of here, but it says, but basically what I want you to do for these, I want you to ask any 2 specific questions about persimmons, right? I want to kind of recreate an in-class discussion in here where students would, we'd read a poem and students would say, hey, I have a question. I didn't understand what was going on with this poem. And they'll point to something and ask a question. I would prefer that we could do that in person, but of course we can't do that in person, so we'll have to do it in this way. So I want you to, as I say here, ask any 2 specific questions about persimmons. And I've got some specific guidelines for this, right, for making sure that they are specific questions. I don't want you to ask things like, what is this poem about, right? Can anybody explain to me what this poem actually means? I don't want you to ask those kind of general questions. I want you to ask much more specific questions, right? Is this thing a metaphor that we have in the poem, right? Why does the poet seem to talk about this? So you'll ask any 2 specific questions about persimmons. You're going to respond to any 2 questions that your classmates ask, and then you're going to reply to one classmate's answer. This is a little different because, as I say here, there's no minimum word limit for these posts, right? So if you just say, is this a metaphor, that's going to be enough for one of your questions. Okay, not like you have to do 50 words or something like that. The reason I'm not putting a minimum is that you have to respond to all 4 poems. So we've got Dothead. The difference for Dothead, I say ask any 1 specific question and respond to any 1 of those questions, right? Asked by your classmates and post 1 reply to the classmate's answer. So you're going to be asking a question, You're going to look back and see what some other students asked, and you're going to respond. Now, you might say, I have a lot of questions. I'm not prepared to answer anybody else's questions. I say in these instructions that you want to give your best answer, right? Guess. That's perfectly fine. There's no penalty for coming up with the wrong answer. Come up with something. I just want a discussion. I want to see you guys working together and thinking about what the poem actually means. So you're going to do that for each one of these. So for Persimmons is the only one, it's a longer poem, so it's the only one where you have to ask two specific questions and respond to two questions. For the others, you're going to ask one question and respond to any one question. And then for all of them, you'll supposed to reply to an answer. So when you reply to an answer, you'll say something like, "Oh, thanks for that answer. I think that makes sense." Or, "That's an interesting answer, but I'm still confused." I want to make sure that you're not critical in your reply. Don't say, "Well, that was a dumb answer that you had," right? Because we're all just guessing about all this. And so you're going to do that for each of these. For again, for Persimmons, for Dot Head, for Of the Threads That Connect the Stars, and for What It's Like to Be a Black Girl. So you'll read all four of the poems in here, and then respond to each of those discussion boards, asking and answering questions about what you see going on. So that's the general format that we're going to have for talking about this. The next video is where I'm going to give you a kind of a little bit of some guidelines about thinking about the poems, some ways of kind of getting into the poems if you might be completely confused. So look at that video to understand how specifically you might want to be thinking about these actual poems.